Across the skyline of Rome, there's a dome that commands attention. St. Peter's Basilica rises over Vatican City like a crown. Its curve designed by Michelangelo himself, visible from almost every hilltop in the Eternal City. By day, it gleams in the sun, and by night, it glows like a lantern above the world's smallest country. But this isn't just another church. St. Peter's is the largest basilica in the world, a structure so massive it can hold over 60,000 people, and it's built directly above what's believed to be the tomb of St. Peter, the apostle Jesus called the rock on which the church would stand. It's a site of pilgrimage, power, and controversy, where faith and politics have been intertwined for centuries. Hello, I'm James, but online I go by Andrade. I travel physically and through deep research to some of the most iconic and mysterious places on Earth. While I sketch them live, this time in watercolor, we uncover not just their beauty, but their stories, secrets, and the stranger layers of their history. Today, as we paint St. Peter's Basilica and its sweeping piazza, we're diving into 500 years of art and ambition. From the Renaissance popes who drained the church's coffers to build it, to the genius of Bernini, Michelangelo, and Bernini, and the hidden symbols and legends that keep people guessing. Because beyond the grand facade and marble, some believe this place holds deeper meanings. That the piazza itself is a cosmic diagram, that the Egyptian obelisk at its center isn't just a monument, and that the basilica may encode knowledge meant for only a few to truly understand. Settle in and watch the sketch unfold as we explore the history, the grandeur, and the mysteries of the Vatican's crown jewel, St. Peter's Basilica. The story of St. Peter's Basilica begins not in the Renaissance, but in the shadow of the Roman Empire, nearly 2,000 years ago. According to tradition, in the year 64 CE, after the Great Fire of Rome, Emperor Nero launched a brutal persecution of Christians. Among these martyred was the Apostle Peter, crucified upside down in Nero's circus, a chariot racing stadium on the Vatican Hill, just outside the city walls. His followers buried him in a modest grave nearby, in a necropolis along the Via Cornelia. For centuries, Peter's tomb was a quiet shrine, known only to a small Christian community, but in the early 4th century, everything changed. Emperor Constantine the Great, the first Roman emperor to embrace Christianity, ordered a grand basilica built directly over Peter's grave. To do it, workers literally leveled the hilltop cemetery, filled it with tons of earth, and created a platform to support what would become the old St. Peter's Basilica, a 5-aisled church with a wooden roof, a towering atrium, and a shrine marking the apostles' resting place. For over a millennium, that basilica stood as the heart of Christendom. Popes were crowned there, pilgrims traveled from across Europe to kneel at Peter's tomb. But by the late 1400s, the old church was falling apart. Its wooden roof was rotting, its walls leaning. More importantly, the papacy, now fueled by Renaissance ambition, wanted something far more monumental. The vision was bold, to build a new basilica so grand it would outshine every church on earth. A structure that would proclaim Rome's power and the glory of God in one stroke. This decision would trigger a construction project so vast, so expensive, and so controversial, it would change not only the skyline of Rome, but the course of Christian history itself. The rebuilding of St. Peter's Basilica began on April 18, 1506, under Pope Julius II, a man known as the Warrior Pope. Julius wanted a basilica that would not just replace the aging Constantinian church, but outshine every monument in Europe, a temple to God and a monument to papal authority that would rival the splendor of ancient Rome itself. The project's first chief architect was Donato Bramante, who envisioned a massive central plan church crowned by the largest dome the world had ever seen, inspired by the Pantheon. His design, known as the Tempietto on steroids, was a pure Renaissance vision, symmetrical, balanced, and bold, but Bramante's death in 1514 left his plans unfinished. Over the next decades, the basilica became a relay race of genius. Raphael briefly took over, softening Bramante's stark geometry. After him, Antonio da Sangallo the Younger expanded the plans, adding fortress-like elements. But the turning point came in 1547, when Michelangelo was reluctantly appointed chief architect at age 71. Michelangelo stripped away many additions, returning to Bramante's clarity and focusing on the dome, a double-shell structure that would eventually soar 136 meters, that's 448 feet, from floor to cross, making it the tallest dome in the world at the time. Though Michelangelo died in 1564 before its completion, his design became the soul of the basilica. Construction continued under Giacomo della Porta and Domenico Fontana, who completed the dome in 1590, and later under Carlo Maderno, who extended the nave into the grand Latin cross shape we see today. By the early 1600s, Gian Lorenzo Bernini took charge of the interior and the sweeping piazza, designing the colonnades that embrace visitors like open arms and the towering baldachin over the papal tower. Finally, in 1626, 120 years after it began, Pope Urban VIII consecrated the new St. Peter's Basilica. What stood now wasn't just a church. It was the physical heart of the Catholic Church, a masterpiece that embodied both faith and papal power in the unprecedented scale. Stepping inside St. Peter's Basilica is overwhelming. Even if you've seen 100 photos, nothing prepares you for the sheer scale. The nave stretches nearly 220 meters, 720 feet, with a ceiling that soars like the sky itself. It's so vast, the lettering around the inside of the dome, each letter over 6 feet tall, looks small from the floor. Above Michelangelo's dome dominates the view, a perfect curve of coffered panels, with rays of light pouring in through the lantern windows like beams from another world. From the center, the dome feels less like a roof and more like a portal, drawing your eye upward into the infinite blue-white glow. Beneath it, Bernini's baldachin towers over the papal altar, a twisting canopy of bronze columns so massive it looks like it could anchor a ship. It's not just decoration, it marks the exact spot where tradition says St. Peter is buried, directly below the altar, down in the Vatican necropolis. The sound inside is just as commanding as the visuals. When the choir sings or when the basilica's enormous organ fills the air, the notes don't just echo, they roll and swell, lingering in the air like mist before dissolving. Yet, despite the size, there are pockets of intimacy. Side chapels where you can hear only your own footsteps and where candlelight bounces off gold leaf like tiny stars. Even the air carries a sensory weight, the faint sense of incense mingled with the cold stone and wax. It's a building that doesn't just impress you visually, it wraps you in a full sensory experience. Sight, sound, smell, and scale all converging to remind you that you're standing at the very center of Catholicism. For centuries, St. Peter's Basilica has been more than a church. It's been a theater of power, devotion, and symbolism for the Catholic faith. At the very heart of the basilica, directly beneath Michelangelo's dome, lies the papal altar, marked by Bernini's massive bronze baldachin. Its spiraling columns aren't random, they're modeled after the ancient columns of Solomon's Temple in Jerusalem, connecting the papacy to the biblical lineage of kings and prophets. Below that, down in the crypt, is the Confessio, the shrine marking what's believed to be the tomb of St. Peter himself. This alignment, tomb, altar, and dome stacked vertically, turns the basilica into a towering spiritual axis, a literal and symbolic bridge between heaven and earth. At the far end of the nave, Bernini also created the Cathedra Petri, the throne of St. Peter. It's a gilded, sculptural setting holding a relic traditionally said to be Peter's actual wooden chair, encased in a storm of golden rays and bronze angels. Above it, a massive stained glass window depicts the Holy Spirit as a dove, casting warm light into the apse so that it glows at certain hours, like a halo. Throughout the basilica, dozens of other relics, statues, and visual cues reinforce Rome's authority. From the statue of St. Peter, whose right foot is worn smooth by centuries of pilgrims touching it for blessings, to the 140 statues of saints lining the colonnades outside. Every element broadcasts the universality of the church. For pilgrims, these aren't just artistic flourishes, they're touchstones of faith, physical connections to the apostles, saints, and symbols that bind the church's past to its present. St. Peter's Basilica isn't just a marvel of art, it's a masterclass in geometry and engineering that pushes the limits of the 16th and 17th centuries. Michelangelo's dome, often called his greatest architectural achievement, is built as a double shell structure. Two domes, one nested inside the other. The inner shell carries the structural load, while the outer shell gives the dome its monumental silhouette. Rising 136 meters, 448 feet, from the floor to the cross, it dominates not just Vatican City, but the entire Roman skyline. The dome's proportions are deliberate, echoing the harmony of the Pantheon while dwarfing it in scale. Its diameter, just over 42 meters, or 138 feet, matches the mathematical ratios Michelangelo studied in classical architecture. creating a sense of balance even as the structure seems impossibly tall. Inside, the coffered panels aren't just decorative. They reduce weight while drawing the eye upward in a spiraling rhythm, guiding the viewer's gaze toward the lantern and the heavens beyond. Outside, Bernini's piazza is equally calculated. The grand colonnades, made up of 284 Doric columns arranged in 4 sweeping rows, form an enormous ellipse. From above, it looks like 2 outstretched arms embracing the faithful as they gather. But Bernini also designed it with precision sightlines. Standing at specific marked spots, the 4 rows of columns visual line into one, an optical illusion meant to impress and astonish visitors as they approach. Even the placement of the Egyptian obelisk at the piazza center was intentional. Moved here in 1586 by Domenico Fontana, it anchors the entire complex, serving as the visual and symbolic focal point, a marker of continuity connecting ancient Rome, Papal Rome, and the heavens above. For all its grandeur as the center of Catholicism, St. Peter's Basilica, and especially the piazza in front of it, carries layers of meaning that go far beyond the official story. Start with the obelisk at the center of St. Peter's Square. This 25-meter monument once stood in Heliopolis, Egypt, where it was dedicated to the sun god Ra over 3,000 years ago. Brought to Rome by Emperor Caligula and later installed by Domenico Fontana in 1586, it predates Christianity by millennia. For some, its placement at the heart of the Vatican represents a symbolic inheritance of ancient power, a bridge between pagan empires and Papal Rome. Others see it as a deliberate marker aligning the piazza with the sun at certain times of the year, turning the space into a kind of cosmic sundial. Then there's Bernini's elliptical piazza, which some researchers believe functions as more than just an embracing colonnade. From above, the shape echoes alchemical symbols for the cosmic egg or solar orbit, with the obelisk as the axis mundi, the world axis. The piazza's proportions are so precise that some claim it was designed to mirror celestial alignments, with the colonnade acting as a symbolic calendar tracking solstices and equinoxes. Inside the basilica, the layering of relics, altars, and the soaring dome forms what esoteric scholars describe as a vertical axis of power, connecting the earthly remains of St. Peter below with the cross and sky above. This world pillar concept, presents in many mystical traditions, suggests the basilica was built as a spiritual engine channeling energy between realms. And then there's the Vatican necropolis and archives beneath it all, a warren of tombs and chambers, many still restricted, fueling centuries of speculation. Conspiracy theories range from hidden early Christian texts to relics of pagan Rome stored beneath the basilica, protected from public eyes. Whether you see these as coincidences, symbols, or something deeper, St. Peter's Basilica carries a presence that feels deliberate, a place where ancient, Renaissance, and spiritual power converge into stone geometry and light. After nearly 500 years, St. Peter's Basilica remains more than just the largest church in the world. It's the living heart of Catholicism. Every year, millions of pilgrims and travelers pass beneath Michelangelo's dome, kneel before St. Peter's tomb, and stand in the shadow of Bernini's colonnades, feeling that strange mix of awe, intimacy, and scale that no photograph can ever fully capture. It's a building where art, faith, and history converge, and for some, a structure that feels like it holds deeper layers of meaning. From its ancient Egyptian obelisk to the cosmic geometry of its piazza. Whether you come for devotion, curiosity, or to feel the weight of centuries around you, St. Peter's offers an experience unlike any other. For me, painting it, one wash of color at a time, while tracing its story across the centuries, is a reminder that places like this aren't just monuments. They're living timelines, connecting us to the past and to mysteries that still haven't been fully answered. If you want to explore more of the world's greatest cathedrals with me, places where we sketch their beauty and uncover their history and secrets, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next deep dive sketch session. Turn on the bell so YouTube actually lets you know when we're live, and please like this video so more travelers and creators can find it. Also, drop a comment below. Which cathedral, monument, or legendary site fascinates you the most? We've got some of the most iconic and mysterious places in the world coming up, and I want you to be here when we bring each one to life, brushstroke by brushstroke.